Hi, everyone. I know you're not used to seeing us off our usual Friday schedule, but it's Pride Month, and we thought we'd take a minute to let our listeners know what Pride means to us personally and just sort of talk about it a bit. And I figure, why don't we start this off, Mary? What does Pride mean to you?
Well, thanks, Drew. So I feel like if you had asked me even just a couple of months ago, I feel like my answer would have been really, really different. So as I've mentioned before on the podcast, I am a queer woman. For me, when it comes to sexual or romantic attraction, gender really doesn't come into play. So there are a few labels that fit me, like bisexual, pansexual, queer, or even unlabeled. For me, labels are really a tool to describe myself, but they're really not the be-all, end-all of who I am. And frankly, I'm not going to start trimming off pieces of me in order to fit within a label, because I did too much of that for too long in order to pass as straight for most of my life. And I guess that's really the other part for me. I've mostly only ever dated cis straight men before, not necessarily because of preference, but because it was quote unquote easier, whatever that means or whatever that meant to me at the time. And so while I really am queer, I never really felt like I belonged in the community because I was so straight passing. Now, I feel like that's drastically changed over the last year or so, and particularly since taking a stand on here about Dean's queer narrative. Because as you know, Drew, and as some of our listeners might know, I handle most of our social media. And so when we get backlash about talking about Dean as bi, for example, I'm the first line of defense. And we do get backlash. We really do. And some of it is openly homophobic and hateful, but some of it is really insidious. Wouldn't you be offended if people took a bi character and said that he was straight? Okay, first of all, in my opinion, that's what people do to Dean all the time. But more to the issue, this is even more upsetting to me than the openly hateful stuff, because it's really manipulative and gaslighty. There's an element of co-opting social justice language to make you doubt your own experience as a queer person and to maintain the heteronormative status quo. So this is what I want to get to. For me, this year, in this moment, Pride means to continue to be subversive, to continue not to fit into boxes, because there isn't a single box out there that can really contain all of me, and I'm really fucking proud of that.
God damn, hearing you say that is just so stunning. And I hope now my Twitter handle of Boxless makes more sense to you.
Oh, I mean, it's always made sense. That always made sense to me. And I love it. That's also what I love about you, right? The fact that you also don't fit in a box. And frankly, none of us do, but we have a tendency of building our identity around specific things.
I think for me, I feel like I'm copying you when I say this, but it is just things very recently, specifically starting the show with you and just some of the communities I've gotten involved with over the last few months or year or so have really led me to change my view of myself in a lot of ways that I kind of always think I knew deep down but didn't know how to say. I am a married man. I'm married to a woman. I have a lovely wife. I have, for the most part, dated women. I have had experiences in life where I have been with people of either gender fluid or male, or actually in a few cases even gender nonconforming. And to me, it sort of always didn't feel like part of my identity. I still, if you asked me, almost out of fear of not wanting to look like I was co-opting something that wasn't mine, I would just say oh, I'm cis, white, heterosexual. And it's been through looking at Dean and a few other podcasts I can thank that I kind of think if I had to jump into a box, which as we've discussed, I think it's better to not, but I think pansexual kind of does just fit. It felt really freeing to say that a few nights ago to my wife and have her just sort of agree and be okay with it. I mean, I grew up always kind of being the guy who was one of the girls. My friends to this day, with all the love in their hearts, and I respect them, still have a private Facebook event that I'm invited to, along with a few of them, for my coming out party, which may one day happen. It's kind of been a running joke forever, and I just sort of see it as a way of them saying, whether or not you are, we accept it. it never felt malicious, and I think that's part of why I'm comfortable saying this now for really the first time publicly, which is kind of scary to think about, but I know I'm saying it to a co-host and to a producer and to a listener base who understand that.
Oh.
Also, to stick with the background a little bit, as I've said before on the show, I really heavily come from a gaming background, and I think if anyone can think of toxic communities, gamers does kind of come up very high on that list. And for me, pride is being able to go into those communities where so many people get belittled for so many things. I mean, certain homosexual slurs are still thrown around today like they're nothing. And taking a stand against those people and making them think about what they're saying, asking the questions of like, how would you feel if someone who was gay was in this group right now and you had to stand up for yourself against them? Like, would you feel comfortable with that joke? And just making people think for a minute that the world is bigger than the world they think they're in. We have become a digital society that is so huge. I mean, look at our listenership, look at the people we get to talk to on Twitter and receive voicemails from and show up to our live events. And you have to remember that there's so many people that you aren't just part of some small clique who can have an inside joke that's completely non-appropriate and just share it online and hope no one's going to call you out on it. So for me, pride is standing up for everyone. It's making people look themselves in the mirror and say, is this what you want to present to the world? Are you okay with that? And hopefully having people realize that sometimes they've made mistakes and they have to apologize and find the right way to do things.
Okay, I feel like I need to, at the very least, respond to the fact that you had never said those words to me before. And I'm just so happy and thankful that you trusted me enough to tell me. So thank you. And I know that we're doing this like recording and everything, which means that a lot of other people are going to hear it. But I'm just so glad that right now it's just you and me and we're able to kind of to talk about it. And I'm so excited that you're actually stepping into this and being yourself.
Like, I know I've worn the ally name tag very proudly for so many years. I'm very happy to know that I've held the hand of some people through conversations that they weren't ready to have yet. You know, I grew up with family members as part of the LGBTQ that I just didn't know until I was older. And I look at the way they were just included in my family. There was never any doubt or difference or othering. They were always just purely accepted. So I consider myself very lucky to have been raised that way, even if I didn't realize at the time I was being raised in such a great way in that sense. And I just think the whole world needs to be that way.
Yeah, and thank you for doing your part and for actually standing up, because it's, as I now know, because of what the kind of comments that we sometimes get about the podcast, like, it's not easy. And so for you to actually take that on, like, when you're in an environment where you are straight passing, I fully appreciate the importance of it and the meaningfulness of it.
Well, thanks goes to you as well. I see what you put up with. I see the comments. I check every video that you post to our account. I watch the moderation happen live. I hope to catch up with you at the end of the day and hear about it, to be there for you if you need it. But I hate that it needs to be a thing, and I'm going to just say it to be very blunt. You're also a woman on the internet, which means you have an extra layer of people after you, more so than if it were me doing this.
Yes.
There is an amount of those comments that come in that may not have come in if it were me.
That's very possible, yes.
And the fact that you know that, the fact that you understand that and still fight is so amazing and honorable, and I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And with this, I guess it's time for us to get back to recording our regular episodes. You know, we've got some work to do.
Shall we get back on the road?
Let's get back on the road.